Welcome, everybody. I'm Josh Gillespie. With me is Brittany Martinez. This is the Principally Speaking podcast, our very first one. How you doing, Brittany?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. Hey, Brittany, can you tell everyone what you are with Principles First?
Yes. So I'm the executive director. I've been on the team in some capacity for a little over 2 years, but officially in my role as executive director since September of 2024. So coming up on 2 years in that role. And no, it's been a lot of fun, and I got to meet a lot of cool people all over the country. And I'm glad that we're doing this. And the people tell us that they want more. So hopefully we can give them more and they like it.
Yeah, no, that I think that's exactly what we're aiming for. My name's Josh Gillespie. I am the director of communications for Principles First. I've been on board now almost 7 months. It's been a lot of fun. A lot of fun, and we're expanding what we're doing. Well, before we dive into kind of the wrap up of the week, this is our first show, like we said at the top. It is something that we're kind of playing around with. So if this is kind of rough going, that's going to be okay, people. It'll get smoother as we do more of these. We're recording in the middle of the week, so goodness knows what can happen on Thursday and actually on Friday, as this will be dropping Friday morning. But yeah, we're going to be as the Principally Speaking weekend update airs on Monday morning on all of our social channels. The Principally Speaking podcast will be on Friday as a kind of a week wrap up to a certain degree. But before we even get to what's been going on this week, Brittany, could you kind of give our newfound listeners, to those who know us and those who don't know us, what is Principles First?
Yeah, so Principles First started back in 2019 to counteract what was then the extreme nature of CPAC. And Lordy, has have times just changed, and has it been made even more obvious how important it is for an organization and pro-democracy organization similar to ours to exist? It was started by those who were concerned with the trajectory of the Republican Party, and we've expanded beyond that. We have a lot of Democrats who we're very friendly with, who often you might see come speak at our events. We have a lot of independents. We have folks who are disgruntled with the Republican Party, but still consider themselves Republicans, like myself. And then you have some who just, are figuring it out. And I think that's okay. And what we try to do is focus on Constitution and rule of law. We like when we have rules for thee and for me. We shouldn't have special rules for special people, right? And ultimately, what we're trying to do is grow our national grassroots efforts. We have 29 state chapters now, which is incredible. Back in April of 24, no, excuse me, of 25, we had none. So a year and some change later, it's really great that we're in 29 states. So if you happen to see this and you don't have a chapter in your state, please feel free to reach out to us, because we're always looking to grow. We're always trying to get more volunteers involved. We have our large annual summit every year. It's traditionally been in February. We'll have an announcement on our 2020 summit coming up very soon. And as far as that, in addition to that, we also do a lot of events around the country. So we've kind of become known for our signature speaker series, and we'll have something in Minnesota, for example. We were just there in June. We had about 120 people in attendance. We've done stuff in Phoenix. We've had things in San Francisco. We've had things in Washington, D.C., in New York City, in Illinois, basically wherever, whenever, we'll be there. And we think that it's important to call attention to when Republicans are doing bad things, but also Democrats. I think that probably a lot of you, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you might agree with what we think, which is the extremes are the ones who get all the attention, who suck the air out of the room, who make the news. But in reality, it's those folks who are normal, who are the ones who are the change makers. And so anyway, we like to make sure people know that folks like us still exist, that we need some normalcy in our politics. So that's a little bit of that.
That is actually a wonderful wrap up of what Principles First is about and what we're doing. I would encourage everyone, and there will be a link, if I edit this correctly, right here. Yeah. something like that, that you'll see that says principlesfirst.us/get involved. And we would love for you to get involved with Principles First. And there's a link to the social media sites for some of our state chapters, as well as a way to contact us to say that you would be interested in starting a chapter in your state if there is not a state listed. That's Principles First in a nutshell. Let's talk about what's been going on this week. And like I said, we're recording this on a Wednesday, and that may change over time. Um, but there has just been already so much that has been going on this week. Yesterday being Tuesday, we had the Senate hearing with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and Secretary Hegseth. We're starting to wonder if Iran is fracturing to a certain degree the GOP in the Senate. Senator Kennedy kind of came out, not necessarily swinging, but he was asking some pretty difficult questions. I mean, asking about tolling, asking about Iran if they'd commenced developing again of a nuclear warhead, and demanding straight answers from Hegseth and Joint Chiefs. And this is just some of the signs that we see in the cracks within the GOP. Again, to a certain degree, it's not full on. What do you make of what we're seeing with Iran, what we're seeing with the Senate, and eventually we'll get to the YOLO Caucus, as I like to call them, as the Politico playbook likes to call them. But yeah,
Yellow.
what are you making of the Iran situation? I mean, escalations and everything.
Yeah, I'd say Americans aren't happy. And so therefore their senators or representatives are also expressing that unhappiness. I would say that senators, members of Congress, they are held accountable to their constituents. And at a time when people are upset, how much are we sending billions of dollars? Are we not? Is it 300 billion? Is that a lie? Trying to figure out what's actually happening in the situation with Iran. I think that the administration has been very unclear with what that looks like. It doesn't really feel like we have a plan. And then you have the president of the United States touting, yesterday, so I guess Tuesday, the number of Americans who have died and said, well, look at how many Americans have died compared to all these other wars, right? And I think that's incredibly classless. These are human beings. These are souls that are lost now. And I just don't know why. We know he does whatever he wants. I was going to say, I don't know who advised him to do that. I'm sure no one advised him to do that. I'm sure he just
I would agree.
said,
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. And, probably to the chagrin of some people in the office, maybe to the joy of some people in the office, because, Trump's going after them, right? But I think that Americans have made it clear they're not happy with this situation, particularly if it means that their gas prices are more expensive. If things are more expensive, the cost of fuel, the cost of fertilizer, it has a lot of trickle down effects. The cost of fertilizer goes up. So what does that mean for our groceries? For our farmers, and I think Americans are rightfully looking for answers, and so I think it makes sense that our senators, including Republicans, are kind of like, all right, we gave you a chance to make this right, and you're not giving us a lot of work with. So now what? Because otherwise, they might not lose their re-elections in November, and that's really all that matters to
No,
politicians, isn't it?
well, that is what matters to politicians. Although it is interesting that it was in the Politico playbook again on Tuesday that apparently word is getting out that Trump cares zero about the midterms, and that was an unnamed source, but that was essentially what was said. Is the president is interested in the ballroom, Iran,
Mm-hmm.
and I forget what the third thing was, but it wasn't. It certainly isn't the elections. It's not about anything that is going on domestically. I mean, gas is going to be north of $4 again. The Washington Post recently released a poll that CNN covered the other day, that showed that 68% of Americans disapprove of the war, with 77% of those people being independents.
Yeah.
Only 27% approve, and that today's numbers are far worse than the bludgeoning that the GOP took in 2006 and the third year of the Iraq War. and it was polling better than the Iran war is now.
Yeah.
And this has been going on for 5 months. Like you said, there is no clear indication of what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish. Every time it is said that we have some sort of military accomplishment, Iran basically comes out and says, no, you don't.
Yeah, they're like, hold my beer.
Yeah,
Actually, yeah,
precisely. That's exactly what they're like. It's like the administration will come out and say, oh, their navy is depleted, their
right.
stockpiles are depleted, they're
Yeah,
non-existent.
yeah.
And
Well, didn't we take out all the weapons like a while
yeah,
ago, and yet somehow there's still weapons, and we keep taking them out. I don't know if
yes,
they just grow magically or something, but yeah,
yes.
what's
And
going
and
on there?
and in 5 months, this war has cost over $37 billion, and they're asking for 80 billion more. This is on top of the $1 trillion budget that the Department of Defense has. And apparently they are asking for 1.5 next year. There is no sanity behind how this war is being run. I appreciate when you can actually see members of Congress actually asking that, you know, asking for direction, whether that's coming from Republicans or Democrats. And I think that, I mean, Speaker Johnson had an interesting quote when he was asked about the war. He basically ended his comment by saying, "We've got to wrap it up." So the cracks are showing.
It's bad when you've lost the Speaker of the House. And I don't mean the Speaker generally, like that's bad, of course, but Speaker Johnson specifically. I used to work for then Speaker Kevin McCarthy. And I think that Johnson did a good job his first year. He had to corral the caucus, excuse me, the conference. Caucus is for the Democrats, the Republican conference back
Yes.
together after all of that nightmare that ensued by those crazy eights. And anyway, I think he did a fair job his first year. But then President Trump was reelected and then became president. And I think he's had a lot harder of a time, right? And so, but despite that, and the president sort of circumventing him at times, or going against something that he said, he has still remained incredibly loyal. And so that surprises me for Johnson to say that, because I think there have been plenty of opportunities where he could say something nicely, but express that he wasn't too thrilled about something the administration was doing. And for him to do that specifically on that issue, Iran,
Hmm.
that's really telling to me.
No, it is absolutely telling. I think that the more time that passes and the less of a resolution that we get, especially as we get closer and closer to the midterms, I've seen reports that basically say that Republicans are giving the president until I think just after the August recess to come up with some sort of direction for this war. Otherwise, they just know that their chances are tanked for
Mhm.
this year. I mean,
Godspeed. Godspeed.
yeah. So interesting things going on in the Middle East this week, but we're not going to leave our GOP senators alone. Let's talk about the YOLO caucus. Well, let's
YOLO.
talk a little bit about the YOLO caucus. Currently, my favorite caucus in the Senate, even as much as it frustrates me, John Cornyn, Tom Tillis, to a lesser extent, the senator who lost in Louisiana. Yes, he was caught in Trump's crosshairs. Trump endorsed his primary opponent, and the primary opponent shockingly won. But Todd Blanche is up for AG full time to take away the deputy title, to take away the interim title. But he kind of got in the crosshairs again of John Cornyn and Tom Tillis. We're fans of Tom Tillis, although he gives us the quotes. I'll give him that.
He's pretty sassy. He's had some good one liners this year for sure.
But I think it's stupid on stilts.
Absolutely. Stupid on Stilts is still one of my
Yeah, there
favorites.
you go. That's one of my favorites.
Yes. Cornyn and Tillis have basically come out and said that if the 1776 Anti-Weaponization Fund isn't fully gone, like permanently gone, because it is apparently tied to some court proceedings. And the only way it can have really officially be gone is if the president signs off on it, as well as the immunity that hasn't gotten nearly as much coverage as it should. But the immunity that the Trump family gets from the IRS, which is in this, Cornyn brought that up. What do you think Todd Blanche's chances of being confirmed out of committee are?
If this was a few months ago before all the primaries, I would have said probably likely, given that we've had some really terrible nominees. And every time we're like, not this one won't happen, this one won't happen. And they've all basically been confirmed. And so I would say that things have changed, and you do have the YOLO Caucus, and you have folks who are like, I don't even care anymore, who may be more willing to help usher it along to not happening. I wouldn't be surprised if it, well, either way, I would be more surprised if it didn't happen, I guess.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, given that, granted they're called the YOLO Caucus, but granted that they've always caved, that's essentially what's come down to. But what I think is genuinely interesting is, especially as we look again at the elections, and we'll be getting into the elections a little bit more later, but with Susan Collins. And I believe the Democrat up there now is Troy Jackson, now that Graham Plattner has dropped out. In 2 days, the Democrat candidate has raised $1 million already. So do you think this puts Susan Collins on the spot at all?
I think it does. And I know that some folks back in Maine were unhappy with the comments she made about ICE following the shooting. Was it last week? Was it the week before? I mean, honestly, it feels like it's happened. It just happens so
all
much.
The time.
And it's insane. And I think that, I mean, Susan Collins, we know that she is a very bipartisan senator. She just took her 10,000 vote a couple of weeks ago now, I think. And people in Maine, they like her and they trust her. As far as, and I know that we're not getting into Maine. I have a lot of thoughts on Maine and what's going on there.
Oh, we could totally get into Maine.
Oh,
that may not be on the list of things.
I know,
but if you got
but
thoughts
I'm ready.
on Maine,
I'm
let's
like,
talk about Maine.
I was about to pivot. I'm like, what are we even talking about? I think that people are understandably they're always paying attention to Susan Collins. And, I know that here's the thing. I feel like Republicans in the time of the Trump years are in a tough spot. You have folks who are just very willing to go along for the ride and believe what the president says. I think he also I've gone to some conferences and seen some white papers and stuff like this, but Republicans are in a tough spot. And you have folks who are willing to go along with the ride, and then you have folks who've been more outspoken. And the ones who are outspoken sometimes still end up going with what the administration wants. I mean, when we think about it, look at all the people from the old guard who very outwardly said, I'm not doing this anymore. There's not literally one of them left in Congress. Mm-hmm. I don't think there is one left as a governor either across the states. And, these Republicans have had to walk a very fine line, often begrudgingly, I'm sure. And so someone like a Susan Collins, I think she's going to take this very seriously. I think that's also one of the words that she uses a lot, that people like to make fun of her, her concern and how serious she's taking it. But she's also been able to continue being successful. So I'm sure she's looking at this and as all her votes and really trying to figure out, what's going to be the best.
Let's talk about let's transition again. Let's do a hard transition, because I feel like that's what we're doing here. Hard transition into our third issue here, elections. And if you have more thoughts on Maine, I definitely want to touch on those.
Yes.
Last night, again, this is Wednesday, so Tuesday night was the primary election in Arizona, and Trump-backed candidates all won, including some who are big-time election deniers, both for governor and for Secretary of State. And we are, as an organization, good friends with the current Secretary of State, Adrian Fontes, who is up for re-election this year. He is a Democrat, so he made it through his primary. I mean, I know that in the past, we can say that, election deniers, they're not going to win. But Arizona has always made it very close.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the Democrats in Arizona are not necessarily taking these victories for Trump-backed Republicans lightly. Is there an argument to be made that in the light of someone like Carrie Lake losing the gubernatorial race in 2020, or excuse me, in 2022, no, 2020,
24.
24? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
24.
that just happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, sorry, it all runs together these
It
days.
does all run together, honestly.
Wait, so do they have 2-year terms in Arizona? Now I'm gonna have to look this up. Doesn't matter. We'll move on. I know it's a Secretary of State candidate for sure. How long do you think Republicans can put up with this, especially in a state like Arizona?
Yeah, I think that, and you tell me, Josh, your thoughts on this too. I
Yeah.
think election questioning is nothing new. Think
Hmm.
about 2000, Bush and Gore, right? The wrong newspaper and all of those things. I think being able to make sure the votes are counted and they're accurate and all of that, I think that's fine. I think that we see that practically every election. Um, but here's the thing is that once we confirm that the results are accurate, then we need to accept the results as accurate and stop denying them. And that is where obviously people totally lose the plot. And
Hmm.
I we've got to turn the page on this. Even last week when the president had his speech at the White House and he's talking about the election again from 6 years ago. Can we talk
Right.
about the economy and gas prices and affordability? Why are we talking about this thing that you've been obsessed with? So we got to turn the page. We've got to turn the page on this. Other thing is Republicans, please keep in mind you have all these people trying to cosplay as Trump and the rhetoric, even dressed. There was, I don't know when this happened. It must have been last year. I think it was like Vivek, and then I think, oh, it must have been 24. Do you remember, Josh? It was funny because I think some of these people were really trying to be like the VP nominee, but I think it was like Vivek. I think it was Byron Donalds. I think it was Vivek, or I already said Vivek, Vance, who were like
Oh
all
yeah.
wearing the
Hmm.
same Trump outfit. And I don't
Hmm.
know if that was intentional or not. Were they on a cute little text chain? Like, oh my God, what are you wearing? Um, but cosplaying like Trump has worked for who? Truly, who is it
Yeah.
worked for? And so I think, is that what you want to see? Like, you got a tinfoil hat on? We got to move on from this.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, if I'm looking at this from a Republican perspective, I mean, trying to relitigate an election that is 6 years old, and has been consistently seen as accurate. There haven't been any issues, um, be it, the many recounts and uh, hand recounts and just all the legal wrangling that happened in Georgia. I mean, I was half expecting the president on during his speech to say that, Warnock and Ossoff were illegitimate.
Yeah. You know what? I'm curious, and I don't mean to cut you off here.
No, it's all right.
Because that's what people were speculating. And I don't know if that was just, you know, I don't know if that was just based on where these kinds of conversations went in the past. I don't know if that's based on someone leaking things. I wonder if it was the latter, if there was so much pushback that the administration was like, actually, let's not do this. If senators or members or whatever got into the admin's ear and said, if this is what you're doing, like, please don't. Or maybe it was never intended to be, and people just made a natural assumption given all the focus that there's been on this topic by the administration. But
Well, what's interesting is that, I watched that speech. I have not watched a lot of Trump speeches in the time that he's been president, primarily because it's just difficult. And he talks for ad nauseum.
they're pretty long-winded.
They are very long-winded. This one was pretty concise for a Trump speech,
It,
and
it was. It was.
He started strong. He started talking about the economy. He tried to talk about the benefits of the one big bill, and uh, it looked like on the surface that for all the bluster that there was about that particular speech, that he wasn't going to be talking about whatever big thing there was. And then, of course, he got to it, and it
Yeah.
was a big nothing burger.
Yeah.
Um, and I listen, I think you're right that Republicans can, the people who are cosplaying as Trump, they're not successful as Trump because there really can only be one. And he's kind of made that clear. There can only be one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when people try to run as him or even run to the right of him,
Mm.
they tend to fail because they've alienated enough of the independents.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's still the independents that can sway an election.
Right. And we have more independence than ever.
Hmm.
So they're they matter. And you said this earlier, for the president to be saying now for a while that he's not really concerned about midterms. As the current state of the Republican Party, not my fave.
Yeah.
But for those who are all gung ho about what it looks like today, that really upset me.
Yeah.
That he doesn't care. What do you mean you don't care? It's your legacy isn't literally just how many buildings you put your name on, but it's also about being able to keep the party going after you. Isn't that the whole point?
Hmm.
So, yeah, I often, I mean, constantly, I'm like, what is going on over there? But
No,
I
it's
no answers.
that's a reasonable question. I mean, at the end of the day, is like, what's who, there are so many. Tom Tillis will say this a lot, that the president is getting bad advice.
Mhm.
And I would question if he's getting any advice at all. Because no one over there tells him no. So it's
Right.
like he comes up with an idea and they're just like, oh, perfect. Yeah, let's go with
Yeah.
it.
Perfect. I think I think he's getting his advice from himself.
Yeah.
And when people say the advice thing, that has been such a tactful way for Republicans especially to be able to push back without pushing back.
Yeah.
But we see what you're doing. You're again, hard time to be a Republican in an elected office in
Hmm.
Congress. But yeah, I also wouldn't surprise me if the admin officials are the ones who do give him some of this advice, but I really think ultimately he doesn't care too much about people's opinions and will just do what he wants to do.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. I think it's interesting that his acolytes across the country, elected acolytes, the chief executive officers of states, so the governors, who try to essentially be, well, as you like to say, or as was like to be said, cosplay as Trump. I think in Indiana, where I'm from, how 14 years ago. I mean, to me, this doesn't seem like that long ago, but I mean, it has been 14 years. We had Mitch Daniels, a common sense thinking Republican, a not one who was out to rock the boat. And the only times he ever did rock the boat, it did not turn out well for him.
Mhm.
Um, but so he was an even keeled guy, and we go to this Trump wannabe in Mike Braun, former senator from the state of Indiana, now governor, who was pushing for redistricting simply because, and he admitted this, he did not want to sidestep the president. And speaking of that whole thing, at least redistricting, one MAGA candidate finally admitted he lost his state Senate race against an incumbent Republican here in Indiana who had voted against redistricting in the state Senate. Um, and Liz Brown, who was the incumbent, she won her seat by 14 votes to retain it. Um, and the guy finally gave up his recount. So, um, I want to say that people don't have a stomach for this. And what will be interesting to me, honestly, at the end of the day, and not that Indiana is any sort of bellwether for what happens nationally, but in Indiana, we have the Secretary of State's race is going to be very, very interesting, just from an election standpoint, because we have a Democrat in Bo Bai, who is the son of former Senator Evan Bai, who was a very popular governor and a very popular senator in his day. We have a Republican who used to, Max Engling, I think his name is, who used to work for Senator Jim Banks. I think you know Max. That face gave me a look like you know Max. And Greg Ballard, who was the Republican mayor of Indianapolis for 2 terms, successful Republican mayor, and is running as an independent, looking to establish his own party called the Lincoln Party. And he got on you need 36,000 signatures to get on the ballot in Indiana as an independent candidate. And he turned in over 74,000.
Yeah.
And I'm not expecting necessarily that Greg Ballard goes out and wins this race. I think he certainly has a chance. But the issue had become that the incumbent Secretary of State, Republican Diego Morales, had his whole host of controversy surrounding him, but was also a Trump acolyte. And Max is the same, and you have a candidate in Greg Ballard and a candidate in Bo Bai who are trying to differentiate themselves and announce themselves as sort of the same candidates in the room. We'll see how long that lasts and see how that plays out. But here's the interesting thing about all of that is that if at the end of the day, if Greg Ballard loses but ends up getting more than 10% of the vote, his new party gets automatic ballot access across the state. Didn't mean to go off there a bit on Indiana.
No,
but
it's your home state. It's allowed.
My home state, and I signed that play or that document to get Ballard on the primary or on the ballot. Just as I actually typically will sign anybody's.
Sure, it's just to get them on the ballot, right?
Yeah, it's just to get them on the ballot.
We deserve.
There's nothing
options.
wrong with that.
Yeah.
Definitely about options. I really don't have anything more than that, except I want to. You seem to still have thoughts on Maine.
Yeah, we don't.
Let's talk about Maine. No. Let's talk about Maine real quick.
Maine.
So we've talked about Indiana here for a little bit and some of the fun things that are happening, but you had mentioned earlier that you have some thoughts about Maine in addition to what you've already given. So now with Plattner out of the race, which is a huge win for Democrats, let's be honest. Regardless of how this race turns out, that's a huge win for Democrats to get him off the ballot.
Yeah.
He was a problem.
Yes.
But yeah, what are your thoughts? What are you making of Maine at this point?
I'm very passionate about Maine right now, and won't harp too much on the Plattner of it all because he is out now. I'll just quickly say it shouldn't have taken Democrats so long to call for him to resign.
No, amen. 100%.
There were so many red flags early on, and they all should have been enough. And so I'm glad that they finally came to that conclusion. It shouldn't have taken that long. And look, I'll give Democrats props for doing this the convention way in 2024. Democrats got a lot of crap for not doing it that way. I mean, they went to convention, but like not in the same way when it when it moved from Biden to Harris. Obviously, there was some strategy there. Probably the main strategy is that they had a war chest. And my understanding is that in order to use those funds, one of the candidates still had to be on the ticket. So I can understand the strategy, the strategery behind that. So good job, Democrats, for trying to do this the right way, I guess. But now their candidate isn't all sunshine and ponies either. And look, this is politics. This is politics at a really high level. I'm not bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I don't expect our people to be perfect. But also, I'm sure you saw this yesterday too, Josh. A lot of people talking about him having a temper, throwing a water bottle across the room. Not aimed at anybody though, but Oh no, yeah. But water bottle, like listen, I've been angry before too, and we're humans, we have feelings. But if you're literally known for having a temper, like, are there not better options? Right. And I was thinking about this, and dating someone is not the same as voting for someone. But if you had a sibling, a friend, whatever, and their boyfriend or girlfriend got into an argument with their significant other, and the significant other in a fit of rage threw a water bottle across the room, not at them, but just because they were mad, you'd probably tell them to head for the hills. And so
Yeah.
I think we should have high expectations for the people who represent us at really high levels. And Democrats, this is what it looks like it's going to be your next candidate. But okay, great. So it's just, and then people say, oh, well, it's not as bad as Plattner. No, he's not, from what we know. So I guess that marks progress, but also electing someone with a temper who like throws stuff around, who is not capable of not being physical. Like, you're a grown man.
Mm-hmm.
It's just weird. It's just
Get your act together. Yeah.
your act together. Yeah. Like, you're grown. Like, you're not a 22-year-old who still shouldn't be doing that. You're grown. So anyway, I'm just red flag.
Yeah. Well, what I found interesting is that he used to be such a hardcore conservative Republican, and now he's a hardcore progressive Democrat.
Stand for something. I don't know.
Yeah, right? I don't know. Yeah. Democrats have their work cut out for them in Maine. And
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, and maybe the polling will suggest otherwise, but I feel like this all but guarantees Collins' victory in Maine, which again, I'm a fan of her, so great. And I don't like when people, but it especially often seems to be men, who kind of acted out in ways that is just very unbecoming of the office. So good riddance. Yeah. That's how I feel about Maine.
Well, I appreciate your comments and insights, because in an era, honestly, where it's difficult to find quality content that will help promote the center right lane, which is what we like to inhabit. It's interesting that, the Democrats in some cases are just kind of shooting themselves in the foot with some of the candidates that they're picking.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unforced errors. And, I mean, again, good in this case. I'm like, that's fabulous. Susan Collins, great bipartisan. It's been funny when sometimes, like, obviously it's a campaign, right? But Democrats, she's extreme. I'm like, use another adjective.
Right. Well,
use another adjective.
I'd like it if like even the administration could stop calling all Democrats communists.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of goes back to that, what we've been talking about this week on some of our staff calls. It's like it's the aggression and the extremes of it all that seem to get the most attention.
Yeah.
And no one is out there, except for us, trying to bring down the temperature.
Yeah. We got to.
Yeah. Someone's got to.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. Somebody has to. Maybe that's what we call the podcast. Someone has to.
Someone. So that has been Princely Speaking, the podcast version. I'm Josh Gillespie.
I'm Brittany Martinez.
And we hope that you enjoy what you've heard, and you'll join us again next week.